It's said that the butterfly effect can turn the smallest of today's actions into tomorrow's greatest consequences. Today, at V Files, we explore three interconnected stories. The ripple effects of these tales were so profound, they forever altered the political landscape of China. Imagine this: the body of a heavily pregnant woman, her near fully developed fetus still inside, on display at the infamous Body Worlds exhibit. This exhibit, famous for its use of real bodies for anatomical accuracy and their often suggestive poses, ignited a firestorm on social media amongst journalists worldwide. But why such an interest? Because this body bears an uncanny resemblance to an 8 months pregnant woman who vanished amidst an affair with a powerful politician. Then, a British businessman suddenly meets his end in a hotel room. His body was found along with scattered pills everywhere. The official cause of death? Alcohol poisoning. Yet, his family was informed it was a heart attack, and his body is hastily cremated without their consent or knowledge. Even stranger, he was known not to be a heavy drinker. Finally, a police chief walks into the American embassy. Troubled and fearing for his life, he offers truth and dirt on his boss in exchange for protection. What do these three stories have in common? Stay with us till the end as we examine and unravel these interconnected true stories. But before we dive in, tickle that like button, tap subscribe, and ring the bell to show some love for your favorite true crime channel. He was a fearless crime fighter, a ruthless gangbuster, a loyal deputy. He was Wang Lijun, the police chief of Chongqing, China's largest and most populous city, a city of 30 million. He was the right-hand man of Bo Xilai, the charismatic and ambitious Communist Party leader, who had his eyes on the highest echelons of power. Together, they launched a sweeping campaign to purge the city of corruption, crime, and dissent. They sang praises for the glory of the Red Revolution. They won the hearts and minds of millions of Chinese people who yearned for a strong and stable leadership. But behind the scenes, a dark and deadly secret threatened to unravel their partnership and expose their true motives. A secret that Wang Lijun knew all too well because he was the one that helped to conceal it. February 6, 2012, Wang Lijun, dressed and disguised as an old woman, drove to the US consulate in Chengdu, a city about 300 kilometers from Chongqing. He carried with him a laptop, a mobile phone, and a USB drive that contained incriminating evidence. He requested political asylum and protection from the US government. He stayed inside the consulate for more than 30 hours, during which he spilled the beans on the scandal that rocked the Chinese political establishment. During this time, growing numbers of armed Chinese police surrounded the embassy. Inside the walls, Wang disclosed to US officials the murder of a British businessman, Neil Heywood. Heywood was a well-connected consultant with close ties to Wang's boss, Bo Xilai, and his wife, Gu Kailai. Heywood was more than just a businessman. He was a bridge between the East and the West, linking Western companies wishing to conduct business in China to powerful figures within the Chinese political establishment. Heywood had a disagreement with Gu Kailai over his commission for helping to sell her 2.5 million overseas mansion. He had demanded more than 1.8 million for making the sale. In China, there are strict limits on transferring money out of the country, and there is an annual limit on the amount of money that can be transferred. Knowledge of this deal would have raised questions in the media on how a civil servant's family income and supposed role models had amassed such wealth to purchase an overseas property of this magnitude in the first place. It's now reported that Bo Xilai and his wife, Gu Kailai, had amassed a fortune of over $150 million, despite reporting a modest family income of just over $18,000 a year. This is why they needed strong allies like Neil Heywood to help launder their money and act as middlemen to their overseas financial dealings. What's ironic is that Bo Xilai, along with his chief of police, Wang Lijun, on the outset ran a strong anti-corruption campaign in their city of Chongqing, reportedly arresting over 5,000 criminals, corrupt businessmen, judges, and even government officials. He confiscated their assets and added them to the government coffers, and reportedly spent over $15.8 billion on improving public housing and infrastructure for his city's residents. He also attracted foreign investments by slashing the corporate income tax rate by half, whilst encouraging domestic consumption of Chinese products, a surefire smash hit with the government officials watching him from Beijing. It appears that during this time, Bo and his wife amassed great wealth through personal favors and more. November 13, 2011, Gu Kailai got her personal bodyguard to pick up Neil Haywood from Beijing and bring him to Lucky Holiday Hotel in Chongqing and check into a secluded villa, room 1605. She had told him she wanted to have a meeting with him, as she now agrees to his requested commission amount and to discuss bigger matters. They had dinner together and then proceeded to his room to have a drink. Unknown to Haywood, Gu Kailai's bodyguard had obtained the room a day before and had prepared it for what was to come that night. During the drinks, Neil was encouraged to keep drinking as they chatted over whiskey and tea. He was happy to hear Gu Kailai had agreed to all the terms and conditions and more. At some point during the night, Neil got so drunk he threw up and asked for some water. It was at this point that Gu Kailai handed him over a concoction of potassium cyanide and water, and hand-fed it to him. She literally fed him poison. He started convulsing and foaming in the mouth, and Gu Kailai force-fed him even more. Within seconds, he hit the floor, and she watched for minutes until he was no longer moving or making a sound. She checked for a pulse, and when she couldn't find one, she let in her faithful bodyguard who was waiting outside. Together, they moved the body and staged the scene with alcohol bottles and pills all around the floor, making it look like an overdose. They then left the room, leaving a "Do Not Disturb" sign outside. Neil Haywood's body was found the next day by hotel cleaning staff. Why did Gu Kailai want to end the life of her closest business ally? It was reported later at her trial that she was extremely paranoid that people were out to get her, and her decision to end Neil Haywood's life stemmed from a threatening email that he had sent her son, where he hinted at exposing their family if he didn't get his fair compensation. Going back to Wang Lijun at the embassy, he said he had a recording of Gu Kailai's confession, and that he spoke to her husband Bo about this. However, when Bo heard about this, he slapped him across the face and belittled him on the spot. Wang said he felt betrayed and embarrassed because he had directly involved his staff to falsify and close the investigation at great personal risk. However, what he was truly afraid of was seeing how many of his colleagues were getting arrested and removed. He feared it would soon be his turn as another loose end to tie up. Unfortunately for him, Hillary Clinton denied his request for asylum, allegedly for not wanting to sour any ties between the two nations, and he was handed over to the Chinese authorities. Wang was later tried and sentenced to 15 years in prison, but not before bringing forth a scandal which shocked the nation and brought down Bo Xilai and his wife Gu Kailai. July 26, 2012, Gu Kailai was arrested and charged with murder. Her trial on August 9, 2012, delivered a swift and unanimous outcome. She pleaded guilty, and her trial lasted only 1 day. At first, she was sentenced to death, but later this was reduced to life imprisonment. September 2013, Bo Xilai was convicted of bribery, embezzlement, and abuse of power. He received a life imprisonment sentence and had all his assets seized by the government. During his trial, the prosecutors alleged that he demanded an equivalent of US $3.56 million in bribes from two businessmen, and one of them testified that he gave Bo's wife, Gu Kailai, this money personally to buy Villa Fontaine St. George's in Nice, France, and had also paid for their son's travel and credit card bills. Bo Xilai maintains his innocence to this day, and his last words after the sentencing were, quote, "I will wait quietly in the prison. My father was also jailed many times. I will follow in his footsteps." hinting at how he will find a way out and be successful like his father, a national hero who was also in prison but later had a successful career when he was released from jail. This is the biggest fall from grace of a Chinese politician in recent history, one who is considered a princeling, in other words, the son of one of the eight immortals, or founding fathers of the Chinese Communist Party. These princelings are favored to carry the torch forward and enjoy political powers and favors not easily offered to many others. Now, dear listeners, what has all this got to do with the body in the museum mentioned at the beginning of our episode? Stay with us as we examine the true effects of Bo Xilai's reign. Imagine running into a long-lost friend, one who disappeared years ago without a word. Years later you find them, not in the flesh, but as a lifeless exhibit in a museum. This is the eerie tale of Zhang Weijie, a renowned TV presenter from Dalian, China. She was at the top of her game in 1998, when she just disappeared. No one knew what happened to her, and people eventually stopped talking about her. But in 2004, 6 years later, some people said they had found her. She was one of the human specimens on the display in the Body Worlds exhibition, heavily pregnant with a near full-term baby inside, also on display. How was she identified, and how did she get there? Let's take a closer look at her life. Zhang Weijie was a student at the Beijing Broadcasting Institute, one of the best schools for media and communication in China. By 1998, she had a successful career at the Dalian TV station, where she worked as a reporter and presenter. She was a popular and well-respected figure in the industry and had many friends and colleagues who admired her. She was also very beautiful and had great communication and presentation skills. She was famous for hosting a show called Sun Rain, which was a popular program that covered guests singing and dancing. The show can be described as a cross between Dancing with the Stars and The Voice. One day she got pregnant, and she was very happy to announce it to friends and family. However, a few months later, she suddenly disappeared. People speculated she may have committed suicide or had an accident, and this was covered up out of embarrassment. However, time passed with no news or updates. Life went on and her disappearance slowly faded away. A once popular figure, now forgotten by most, that had turned into her show regularly. That was until April 2004, when someone reported that they found a person that bore a striking similarity to her. They claimed to have found her on display in the Body World exhibition, a controversial show which displayed real bodies, perfectly preserved and dissected to show their internal anatomy. Body World exhibition used a technique called full body plastinates, where the skin is removed and various organs are highlighted or illustrated to display their function in explicit detail. These techniques were developed by Gunther von Hagens, who combined anatomical science and polymer chemistry in the late 1970s. People claimed that they recognized Zhang because the specimen resembled her shape perfectly. The outlines of her skull, the size of her feet, and more disturbingly, a near perfectly developed fetus, which coincided with the timing of her pregnancy when she disappeared. Zhang was around 8 months pregnant, and the fetus on display had arms, legs, and the recognizable face of a baby. This led to a firestorm on social media. News outlets and overseas journalists were calling for a DNA test to confirm the origins of the body on display. Unfortunately, though, no DNA test has been done till date, and the exact identity of the specimen has not been disclosed. Body Worlds have said that their bodies are all procured via donation, with permission from the families, and they have purposely altered the faces of these display models so there is no resemblance to an identifiable person. But people also questioned who would agree to have their pregnant daughter or relative, especially with an unborn child, turned into a display model. This was very unlike traditional Asian culture and values. As it turns out, Von Hagen's Dalian Plastination Limited was the company that processes bodies for body worlds and was based in Dalian, China. The company was established in 2001 at the same time Bo Xilai was the mayor of Dalian and had direct oversight of all foreign companies requiring licenses and approvals. Reports speculated that Dalian was the ideal hub for transportation and processing of corpses due to the cheap labor and many bodies available. The affair. Before Zhang Weijie disappeared, there were rumors that she had an affair with Bo Xilai, who was the mayor of Dalian at the time. Some people said that Bo helped Zhang get a job as a news anchor at Dalian TV. Bo was a married man with a family, and his wife, Gu Kailai, was not happy with his infidelity. She knew that her husband had many mistresses, but she was furious that Zhang was flaunting her relationship and threatening to go public. When Zhang Weijie got pregnant, she was uncomfortably open about her relationship with Bo, and this made Gu Kailai extremely unhappy, reportedly crying and upset enough to have publicly expressed her desire to make Zhang Weijie disappear. She used her influence to spread negative press about Zhang, causing her to lose her job. It was rumored that she ran a petition campaign in the press against her, eventually causing her to be arrested by security officials. Zhang was taken to Dalian Nansheng Hotel and rumored to be subject to brutal interrogation methods and physical abuse. Allegedly, this was the last time anyone saw Zhang Weijie. It's also rumored that Gu Kailai was the de facto general manager of the plastination company in Dalian, and coincidentally, the company was immediately shut down when Bo Xilai and Gu Kailai were arrested. It was not until his trial that Bo Xilai admitted to his infidelity with multiple women, and Gu was convicted of murder, that people truly started to realize what the couple were capable of. It was now very likely that Zhang's disappearance in Dalian in 2001, when the plastination company was present, was under the watchful eye of Gu Kailai and Bo Xilai, that there indeed was a possibility that she ended up as an unwilling victim and put on display at the Body Worlds exhibit simply out of a wife's hatred and spite. This author wants to reiterate that until truly confirmed by facts, the origin of the pregnant body on display is still a rumor. As we conclude this episode, we are left with more questions than answers. The interconnected stories of Zhang Weijie, Neil Haywood, and Wang Lijun reveal a chilling narrative of power, corruption, and deceit. It's a stark reminder of the lengths some individuals will go to maintain their power and status, but it also underscores the importance of truth and justice. We may never know the full story of what happened to Zhang Weijie, but the speculative coverage of her disappearance has ironically continued to keep Bo Xilai and Gu Kailai in the news, something Gu Kailai worked very hard to prevent. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of the most shocking true crimes cases in history. If you believe the body on display is Zhang Weijie, the lover of Bo Xilai, or just a rumor, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out our other playlists for all of our cases to date. Until next time, this is V signing off.